Welcome to this episode. I am so excited to introduce to you one of my really special friends. Her name is Stephanie Trzaska. She is an intuitive life and embodiment coach for women who are hungry for self-expansion and deep inner knowing. She's certified in EFT and Usui Reiki Level 1. She helps women reclaim our power and light through conscious connection with the wisdom of our body, guiding us to release deeply embedded subconscious blocks to create a life that is authentic and aligned to who we are on a deep soul level. So please help me welcome my friend Steph. I am so grateful for Steph being here today. So excited to welcome her here to the show and to introduce you to her and connect you to the wonderful light that she is. And I can't wait for her to share her story today. Welcome, Steph.
Thank you for having me. I'm so delighted to be here.
I'm
Talk
so
about
excited.
myself. I mean, what's better? No, just kidding.
I'm so excited you said yes, and I'm so grateful that you gave up such a busy time in your schedule to be with us today. I want to start with a really special question, and that is, how would you describe your essence?
Oh, I love this question. So, what comes to mind immediately, and it's actually something many of my friends and clients tell me, is the word permission.
Hmm.
And it's honestly, it's not one that I would generally describe myself as offering or giving to the world because I always believe that the ultimate permission giver in anyone's life is yourself, right? I'm not here to give someone permission. However, that's what a lot of women tell me is being in my space because I am so fully who I am in each
Yeah.
moment. I really just express what's on my mind, my heart. I live in each moment, kind of like a puppy dog in some ways. I totally
I
love to relax
love it.
into the sun and just completely melt into my space wherever I am. But at the same time, I love to run wild and free. And
Mm.
yeah, so I don't know if permission really explains those things I went into detail on just now, but that is the word that everybody I meet says that I offer them. And that's the energy they
Wow.
get with me. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. So it actually, when you were sharing that, the term authentic self came up.
Hmm.
And, you're able to embody your authentic self with not a second thought. And I
Yeah.
love that you're able to be who you are and in turn give permission and the space, hold the space for people to do that for
Hmm.
themselves, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Steph, I'm curious, how did you come to know your authentic self?
You have really wonderful questions, can I just say?
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, beautiful question. How did I come to know my authentic self? It's a series of experiences. It is life unfolding and it is being open to life unfolding.
Mm,
I think when we focus so much on an outcome and when we focus so much on um, externally, what we think we should be doing, how we should perform, how we should be portraying ourselves and showing up in the world, that's when we put ourselves in a box and we're not really sure who we are, right? Maybe some of the things we do are um, authentic to us and they're in the spirit of our absolute truth, but so often we just fall into patterns and habits that don't really belong to us. And so for me, it has been listening to my desires,
mm-hmm,
listening to my fears.
mm,
Our intuition is always speaking to us. And so when I feel that dull block in my body, it's me making a choice to listen and to not take a certain road, even if it's the road that I should take from the outside.
yeah.
Or on the other hand, when my intuition is just driving me with butterflies and giggles and champagne bubbles, it's doing that thing. And so I
Mm.
think that's how I've come into my authentic being is just, um, it's like the yellow brick road kind of just like following that and what feels right, not what other people have put there for me to follow.
Got it. Got it. So you're very in tune with your body, which I mean, we could have guessed based
Yeah.
on who you are and what you provide as a gift and service to this world. But you coming into your authentic self was easy for you because you were able to connect to your body.
Yeah, but it's funny that you say easy. It is because it does come naturally to me. However, in my life, ever since I was a little girl, I definitely struggled with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took a lot of hard work to be able to listen to my body without guilt, without shame, without doubt and insecurity, because I was a people pleaser. I wanted to be loved, accepted, respected, and felt like I could only do that if I was acting in the ways that people wanted me to. So
Mm-hmm.
while it's in my heart to follow my authentic self, there was definitely conditioning that I had to strip away over the years. And I think it was
Mm.
ultimately 3+ years ago when I decided to start my business and step away from being a teacher, a Montessori teacher, that I really was able to start being more unapologetic and fluid in making those choices that were so in tune with who I am and my body. And then as well as, having my second son, Everett. So I have a 4.5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. And after having my 2.5-year-old, I had postpartum depression, postpartum rage, was very closed off. And it came to light during that time that I really was disassociated from my body in many
Mm-hmm.
ways. So I had really shoved down a lot of sensations, a lot of feelings. I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm empathic. I'm intuitive. And these are skills or I don't even know if gifts, I suppose would be the word that I resonate with more, but skills and gifts that I'd had that I hadn't always tapped into because, again, they were more on the fringe or, that those were skills that weren't valued as much as other hard skills. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was doing a lot of work in the last 3 years with my body, with my energy, that has really opened me into being that ultimate permission giver and that authentic self.
Wow. What would you say that did with your relationships?
Oh, it's just made them so much better.
Yeah.
Deepened them. My husband comes to mind first,
Mm-hmm.
because we've been together 15 years. We fell in love when I was 19, and we have stayed the same in certain ways, but we have drastically changed in others, and we have grown alongside one another. What I always felt with my husband was a comfortable love and like home, right? This person feels like home to
Mm.
me. And
Mm-hmm.
we had passion and fireworks and things like that too, but over the years that can sort of take a back seat or it can fade when other things come to the surface and you're just dealing with life in the everyday. And through the work in the last few years, I discovered some intimacy blocks that I had. And I'd always kind of known, certain things, like to be really candid and clear and honest here. One of my
Please.
things that I brought to my therapist a few years ago after having Everett was I didn't like making eye contact during sex. Like I
Okay.
didn't want my husband, I didn't even want him to look me in my eyes. I didn't want to look
Mm-hmm.
at his eyes. And it always felt wrong to me. Like, why can't I do that? Why do I struggle there? And so it was, through Reiki, that was the first thing where they had said to me, a few practitioners, it's like your heart is armored.
Mm.
And so it was this melting away and de-armoring that allowed me to be intimate and to deepen my relationship. So like I said, my husband's the one that comes to mind. And so where like just emotionally, spiritually, and sexually, like how our dynamic has deepened and shifted has been beautiful. And
Mm-hmm.
it's because I've allowed myself to soften and melt and lean deeper and closer into the parts of myself that I'd kept in the periphery and that I hadn't looked closely at. But it has done some level of that to all my relationships, or
Yeah.
friendships where people that I've known for ages and ages, maybe we've grown apart in certain ways. And you could say, like, oh, this relationship has gotten superficial, or it's not serving me in the ways that I really want to be served spiritually in these deep ways. And rather than closing those relationships off, what I've been able to do is stretch out and reach out to other people who do want a spiritually connected relationship with me, a friendship with me, a sacred sisterhood, and these other magical, mystical, witchy ways. And I have those, but I can also really lean into the comfortability and familial love that I have with those relationships and those people that have been with me forever, but that
Mm-hmm.
don't quite tap into deep, wise source that I've kind of come out into in the last couple of years. So in every
Yeah.
way, it's made my relationships um, just more dynamic and so much better,
Wow. Wow.
richer.
That's amazing because I was actually almost half expecting you, Steph, to say that when you started giving yourself permission to be your authentic self, to stop following in other people's expectations of who you're supposed to be, that maybe that would have strained those relationships. But you're saying it's actually made those relationships more dynamic.
Yes, yes. And
Wow.
a sense of ease in my soul
Hmm.
and in my being, as I mentioned, yeah, I mentioned some fear and anxiety in my life. And so it's like I really can be more peacefully and wholly myself without feeling like a churning in my stomach or a racing heart or a dry mouth or, different sensations that would ripple through my body when I wanted to be more deeply who I was. Now it's like,
Hmm.
oh, I can be that and I can accept myself and I can trust that others will accept and love and be inspired by that too, or they won't. And if they don't, that's all right. That's okay.
How long did it take you to get to that point where you're not feeling
Um,
those things anymore?
It's hard to put a timeline on it. I keep just kind of going back to the timeline of um, it really to me starts with starting my business three and a half years ago or so, and
Hmm.
then even more deeply in the last 2 years or so when my spiritual awakening happened and when I started leaning more deeply into yeah, my emotional landscape.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit? I'm going to get sidetracked if we don't bring it back, but I am really curious. For those relationships in your life before you started your spiritual journey, how did you deal with them? Because a lot of times when we go through that awakening process and really discovering our true selves, sometimes it feels like we're shedding the armor. And
Yeah.
along with that armor, some of those relationships from the past, and for some of us, it's familial, right?
Mhm.
Family members
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
don't align with who we are anymore. How did you navigate that part of your journey? Did you experience that?
Um, what I tend to do when I am exploring other facets of my being is I like to do it privately first.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just keep to myself on those areas until I feel comfortable expressing them. And so I didn't run into any roadblocks or resistance in the sense of people questioning what I was doing or who I was becoming or stepping into because I held
Mm-hmm.
my cards pretty close. And that is not for everyone, but that is definitely the way I have almost always been able to step into my power and truth. It's like doing it totally in private or among people who don't have preconceived ideas and notions about who I am, what I stand for, how I should behave and present myself in the world. And then it's like I just sort of share in little doses with them. I remember even with my husband, like when I started really having my big spiritual awakening, the card decks and the books and the chanting and different things that were coming into my life that had never been a part of my life. And I just kind of told him like, that's the one person I couldn't fully do it behind closed doors with because he
Yeah.
shares a home with me. And so I would just tell him like I'm exploring part of myself that has yet to be born. I can
Mm.
tell you that I am about to change a lot. There's a
Wow.
lot that I'm on the precipice of, and I am not going to forget about you. I'm not going to leave you behind. I very much know in my heart that you're a part of my path forward and a part of my journey, but I'm going to need some space and just for you to kind of ignore whatever you see me doing or hear me doing or whatever comes my way. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want you to ask about it. I don't want you to make cute little jokes about it. I need to take myself seriously and I need to do it quietly. And a wild
Wow.
woman is going to be there for you when I'm on the other side of this, and it's going to be amazing for us. But until I'm ready, I need you to just know this is happening and give me space for it. And so that gave me
Wow.
the permission to sink in more deeply and
Yeah.
authentically. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there was so much wisdom there, even though like that was just like the beginning, right,
Yeah.
of your
Yeah.
journey. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you. Thanks.
So amazing. So we talk about how if we don't give ourselves permission to show up,
Hmm.
that other people's expectations of us are going to determine how we show up. And we think of relationships in this way where they are reflecting to us something that maybe isn't um, something that we want to experience, right? Like we will, in our relationships, see things about ourselves that make us cringe sometimes, or that make us feel ashamed, or make us feel guilty. But I don't think we think about relationships that make us actually see our capacity to grow. Are there
Yeah.
particular relationships that come to mind for you, Steph, when you think about the relationships that made you really like see, like even for like a glimpse at a time, like the capacity or the woman that you would unfold into?
Yeah, I mean, you're one of them. I think for sure there have been, for me, social media has been a big portal
Mm.
to this other world that exists beyond myself. And I say that in that it has held for me the sisters and the women who embody and encompass a lot of the things that I'm tapping into, that I'm bringing into my own life, my own world, and my own sphere. And so um, it was being able to, and I don't even remember, to be honest, how you and I like first connected. I could, maybe you can tell me, but I can't remember the moment or how it happened. Um, but it's been meeting these women and like just being able to kind of see them from the outside, and there's that magnetic attraction, I guess. It's just like there's certain
Mm.
people that you see them or you hear them speak or you read their words and you're just like,
Yeah.
her, right? And as I'm saying this, I
Ah.
remember we got on a Zoom call and I
Yeah.
was like, I know you. I know you
Yes.
from another life or what. It just was
Yes.
this instant recognition, the soul's
Hmm.
recognition. And so, yeah, not to like, there are other women I could specifically name them, but I think to me that is probably the point that sticks and that feels so potent is just how our souls and spirits can recognize the people who we are meant to be
Mm.
aligned with and in relationship with in this lifetime or in certain chapters or seasons of our lives, you know?
Wow. Wow. So the people that helped you to feel and understand your true essence are people that you felt magnetized to, people that you like almost had
Yes.
an instant knowing of having
Yes.
known them
Yes.
forever, right?
Yes. 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 Exactly. It was just like, yes, exactly. All these women. Now I'm thinking like the way you just phrased that and framed it for me, I'm like, oh yeah, and her and her and her. And some of it was locally. Maybe it was a flyer of an event or something. And like, yeah, I
Yeah.
have to go to that. And then it would connect me to somebody that was there and so
Mm.
on. And then those relationships built. But yeah, it was the feeling of the magnet being present and then just it felt like centuries old, like centuries
Wow.
old of wisdom and friendship and sisterhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know how we met, but I do remember our first call and that instant
Hmm.
knowing. And even at the end of that first call, we even said, I love you, right? Like, it's just
Yes.
when you know and you feel that connection to someone and you feel like you can, for me anyway, I felt like I can just be myself. I could be
Yeah.
completely vulnerable and just share myself with you without like not even a second thought of, what is she thinking of me? What can I say
Yeah.
to make sure I please her or I make sure she's not offended? Like none of that happened. And
Yes.
those relationships might be far and few between in the beginning, but as we continue on this journey, I mean, it continues to like gravitate into your life, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's the willingness to follow. I don't even want to call them breadcrumbs. Well, my business name is Little Scraps of Magic. And so to
Yes.
me, it's like following the little scraps of magic, right? They
Yeah.
lead you, that illuminate your life for you. And I think that's the other piece
Mm.
of it. These women, these people who appear for you that you're drawn to, that they really illuminate you and your power and your essence and your truth, and you do the same for them. And in
Mm.
effect, it illuminates your future. Like, what are you going towards next, right? It just
Wow.
gives this entirely new dimension to
Mm-hmm.
your existence. This other
Mm.
world that you get to be a part of and live in
Yeah.
and dance in, you
I
know?
love that. That actually kind of answers the next question I had for you, which is,
Mhm.
What is that thing that you think you've learned in as a pattern from all of those relationships? But I love what you shared. Is there something in the beginning of your process or your journey that you will always take with you, like you keep in your heart? Like maybe there's a special conversation where you really felt something or learned something about yourself that you will always carry with you to remind you of how special you are?
Aw. Um, I don't know if there is a conversation that reminds me of how special I am, but it's more so the feeling in my heart, the looks on the faces of the women. It's in it for me. It is primarily women, right? These
Mm-hmm.
relationships that I've built that are so sacred. But the looks on their faces when we get to connect, or one of the things that I love doing, as you know too, is connecting the women that I love with each other. Because
Yeah.
then I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to meet this other soul. Like you guys are going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to collaborate professionally, or you're going to end up being these like best friends that you're going to have forever.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I love. But for me, it's more. Yeah, just like this feeling in my heart and the vision of those women that I have come to love or come to know. It's just explosive and in the best way possible. And so for me, it's being able to move forward with just trust. It's like the proof of what I've already gotten to experience and the people that I've gotten to meet and draw into my life. That's
Mm-hmm.
what sticks with me as the continue calling it in, continue listening when you have
Mm.
that urge and that whisper of like reach out to her and see if she wants to talk. Reach out to her and see if she wants to like, do a Zoom call. And then after that, do we want to go on Marco Polo or some other app or some other way of
Yeah.
being able to deepen this relationship? And so it's more that just following that feeling of, I wish I could think of the exact word that I want, but it's just like destiny. You know,
Yeah.
it's like this
Mm-hmm.
person is part of your destiny. Follow it.
Wow. Wow. So the thing that sticks out to you in almost all of your sacred relationships is almost like a nod, right, from
Yeah.
the universe, like a verbal affirmation,
Yeah.
like you're on the right path.
Yeah.
And it opens up like the world of magic.
Yeah, it does.
Wow. Wow,
It
wow,
does.
wow. Love it. You know, as you're sharing that with me, Steph, I something occurred to me. So I know I told you why I reached out to you and why I needed to have you on this episode when we're talking about relationships. But it really didn't occur to me. I was just like on the tip of the iceberg. But for me, I realize now, Steph, in almost all of your relationships, in our relationship, in the relationships that I've seen you build from the outside in, you have this way of like unconditional acceptance of the other person.
Hmm.
And I think that's like, that was the thing that pulled me to say, you need to talk to Steph when it comes to relationships because you have this way of unconditionally accepting the person, the circumstance, right? That present moment, that space you're holding for each other, that I think is, I mean, magical, so
Hmm.
magical. How
Thank you.
do you how do you do that? Because I really do think that might be like the secret, the key ingredient to creating sacred relationships.
One of the things that I definitely do unconsciously
Hmm.
is I feel like every person I meet, I think of them as a little child,
Mm.
and my heart just melts, you know?
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, I was a very sensitive little girl, and my mom told me, and I remember, but there was a little boy, his name was Thornton Guinea, and he was in my kindergarten class, and he wouldn't speak to the teachers, but he would speak to me. And so I would speak for him to the teachers and to other people because I was who he felt comfortable going to. And over the years, they kept putting him in class with me so that I could support him. And it
Be his
never felt
advocate.
overwhelming. We weren't attached at the hip or anything, but it was, I guess, this thing that I did. And so I think I've always had that tender, loving heart for I don't want to say the underdog, but I do feel like children are just so often overlooked. You know, whether you're
Hmm.
a really sensitive child that might have anxiety or not, children just are not always given the respect, the credit, and the space to be who they
Mm.
are. And I just remember the frustration I would feel, or the sadness, or the fear, and the empathy too for others when I would feel or see things happening. And so, as I shared at the beginning of this interview or this talk, that I was a teacher for many years before diving into my business. And just really wanting to wrap up all of those children in love. I remember the heartache of leaving your parents when you'd go to school, and the heartache of wanting to share with a friend, but then they kind of laugh in your face, or they go to another person. It just like all of these moments that can be so emotionally charged for us when we're young, and we sort of just like grow these calluses and move on with our lives as we get older. And I
Mhm.
feel like I will never forget that that's where we all came from, and that those are the moments that have built us and shaped us. And so I tend to think I look at people with a lot more compassion and love and patience and acceptance, because I feel like I can see where a person has been before they
Mhm.
became an adult. I can see the hardships
Wow.
or the conditioning or anything else, and I want to soothe that, and I want to be able to be a part, not that I have to be a part of it, but like giving them the space and the affirmation and the gumption of, you are so worthy of
Yeah.
everything, right? You're so worthy of your life. You are so worthy of having splendid relationships and a fantastic career and anything else.
Oh,
And
that's
so, yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Oh my God, that was so beautiful. So
Thank you.
you do this by seeing the inner child in each person, the way you're
Yeah.
able to actually see them, right? And unconditionally accept them. How might that be tied to the gift that you bring to this world and helping us shed the embedded block? How do we know that they're embedded blocks? How is that connected to the inner child that you're able to naturally see?
Mm. Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, I don't fully know, because I didn't even fully know that I did this until you asked this beautiful question. And I'm like, oh, well, of course, I see the child in every person that I meet.
Mm.
So much just comes intuitively, and yeah, but can you rephrase the question again? Because I had a little bit going, and then as I gave that other answer, I sort of just
Yeah, sorry,
forgot.
that might have just been me wanting to like really get as much of you as I
No,
could.
I love it. I want
Um,
I want to think about that. Yeah, tell me again.
yeah, so you have this natural ability to see the inner child.
Yeah.
And I think that's really tied into your gift of helping women and I mean individuals in general, even though you work with women specifically,
Mhm.
individuals shed those like embedded subconscious blocks
Mhm.
from that's keeping us from being able to embody our body like ourselves
Yeah.
fully. Is that are the two connected in a way that you can share with us a little bit?
Yes.
Okay.
So now that does, I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. So when I do work with people and I'm I don't even know if coaching is the word. It definitely is in certain aspects of what I do, but it's also space holding, mentoring.
Mhm.
But what I often do with clients then is we will go into a guided meditation journey. I don't even know if it's fully a meditation, because journey is more the word that I think encompasses what we do. So, I'll take them to a space and time that is not really in the present moment, and we go excavating, right? So it definitely feels channeled. It's not like I'm pre-planning these journeys ahead of time. It's really upon feeling the energy of who I am with in that moment, and then channeling this journey and taking these women down different paths, whether it's underground or in another dimension of time and space, and it could be opening literal doors in this journey. It could be seeing colors and symbols. There's visitors that come through, and there's messages. And so when they're on this journey, it's not that every time I'm taking a woman into her past, into her childhood. That's not always the case,
Mhm.
but usually things are discovered or come up that are somehow attached to their childhood or something that happened earlier in life, right? And so that's
Mhm.
where when we talk about the deeply embedded subconscious blocks that they're holding on to, it's like, right, intellectually they wouldn't have remembered this, they wouldn't ever talk about it. It's because they are on a spiritual journey, and they're connecting with their bodies in this deeper way where they don't have to think about it, that they're able to pull up
Mm,
these sensations, these memories, these things that happened, and then accept them, right? They first find them, they acknowledge them, they accept them,
mhm,
and then they
mhm.
let them go.
Wow.
Or they create more meaning with them, depending on where their path needs to take them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think, does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think this might be the final question given I want to respect your time. How often in your work do you find that these blocks or trauma happen as a result of relationships?
Huh. I feel like all of the time, because we have relationships not only with other people in our lives, but we have a
Mm.
relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
We have many relationships with ourselves, different versions of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And so it is always related to that. Always, always.
Mm.
But I think probably in the way that you phrase the question too, you likely were considering or implying, relationships with other people. And in that case, yeah, it's wild. A lot of them are with people that maybe they didn't even know for that long. It's not
Mhm.
always the case, but it might be an instance, right? A
Mm.
teacher or a stranger that they saw somewhere, and whatever, for whatever reason, it deeply impacted them. And it can just really shift the way that we view ourselves in the world and the roles that we are here to fill and what we're here to do. And then that completely changes the shape of our path forward, right? So
Yeah.
often, yeah, when we go to these places, it was an interaction. It was this moment with a person, or in
Yeah.
other cases, a series of repeated moments that are similar, right? Because we have those
Mm.
relationships too, where those habits and those patterns have been created.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think the beautiful thing about that is we can really control and change so many things, but when we can acknowledge that it's a relationship or a person that's shaped us, especially when it's been something that might be a little more negative, that we
Hmm.
can then put up distance between ourselves and that person or that thing, that emotion or that a trait that we believe ourselves to have, and understand like, no, that's not my limitation. That's due to an experience or relationship that I had with a person. That's not actually
Hmm.
me, right?
Yeah.
I can do more. I am different. I am outside of that experience.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So you actually, I mean, you nailed it. And I totally thank you for pivoting us this way because I did not see us landing here. But
Yeah.
you nailed it when you said the relationship to other people shape our, not ourselves, but our relationship to ourselves. And we have multiple relationships with ourselves, which was so greatly put. So can we have a bonus question? Is that all right?
Totally. I love all of your questions. All you give me a bonus question.
Given where your wisdom has landed us, Steph, what would you
Yeah.
say is your advice in terms of shaping our relationship to ourselves in a more beneficial and wholesome way?
I think it is so about listening and having respect. It's the narrative that I think that we often have is you have that desire, you have your soul voice speaking to you, right? Of like, this is what to do, this is what we want, this is the next move to make. And then we usually let another voice come in. And this other voice is, so I just was using this example the other day, on a podcast that I was recording, of the voice of desire, of wanting to go jump in this freezing cold lake, wanting to just go and feel free and feel alive, and then roll around in the sand and bake in the hot sun and feel the chills in my body. And when I say cold water, I mean like, like freezing cold
Yeah.
water. So you get this heightened feeling. And I did that, right? I listened to that desire and I did it, and it was one of the best feelings and one of the best days and a rebirth for me. But what
Mm,
can so often happen with me and many other people too, is that other voice that comes in and says, Well, but if you go in, then you're going to be really cold. And then when you get out, you're going to be colder. And then the sand's going to stick to your legs. And then you're going to walk home with the sand rubbing up against your sandals. And it's going to create a blister. And then you're going to be shivering, right? So we allow that narrative, I think, to control us and to dictate what we do. And that's not the true you, right? That's not your soul
Mm.
self. That's not like your big spirit part of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, to answer your question, it is listening to that initial voice, that ping, that one that just feels rich with possibility, having respect
Mm.
for that voice rather than the rational, logical voice that you think is trying to protect you, right? And keep you
Yeah.
safe and just like do the right thing, keep things simple, keep things light, keep things easy, do it this way. And I'd say, don't, don't do that,
Wow. Wow.
right? Then we live a half life.
Wow. And for people that are having a hard time distinguishing between the two voices, it really comes down to possibilities or protection.
Yes.
Love
Love
it.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Thank you so much. This was so amazing. I love our conversations. Steph, for people who are interested in finding out more about you, want to connect with you, want to work with you, where can we send them?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. This has been just a pleasure. You are one of my favorite now interviewers of all time. Your questions are so stunningly gorgeous with so much depth. And so
Mm,
thank you for drawing out so much magic because
thank
you
you.
are skilled. And where people could find me, I'm active on Instagram. So at the time of this recording, and I don't think my handle will change anytime soon, but it's Steph.Traska. So it's PH for Steph and then TRZASKA. And then my website
Mhm.
is littlescrapsofmagic.com. And I host retreats. I do in-person circles here in Cleveland, women's circles, and sound baths, things like that. But I do a lot of virtual work too, so one-on-one coaching, group programs, and things of the like. Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you so much for your presence today. It means so much. It means so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.